this brings me to the psychology aspect, and I want you to just listen carefully to this, please. Many of us are under the impression that because there's some sort of so-called separation between church and state. No, my children, they're not being taught about Jesus at school. They're being taught something more dangerous. Don't think that because there's a separation between church and state, that your children are not learning morals at school. They are being taught morals, and believe me, they're not your morals. They are not your morals. They're a different set of morals, and they are forced down the throat. For example, these children are forced to accept that homosexuality is perfectly fine. I'm just telling you the truth. That this is a moral teaching. You cannot go through the system and come out. You cannot go through the system and come out not believing that, or else you're called Islamophobic, or rather, homophobic. This is unacceptable. So even though they're not teaching them religion, realize they are teaching them a religion in the sense of it's a way of thinking and believing, and it's the only thing that's acceptable. You're not allowed to say that this is morally wrong, because that actually that will ostracize you. So that's just one example. But there are countless examples that even though you're not being, it's not like they're teaching about Jesus or the Son of God, but there are beliefs that are being taught, and you may not realize it, but there's a certain way that you're taught to think, and this is the only acceptable way to think. Second, is that when you're exposed to something consistently, this is now psychology. You guys know about desensitization, right? Do you know what that means? So for example, okay, I'll tell you. For example, when you take a certain medicine, right? When you first take the medicine, there is like this dose that will work, right? But then over time, what happens to your body? It becomes desensitized essentially to that dose, right? So now as you have to take a certain medicine chronically, you will have to take a higher dose for it to have the same effect. Yes? You know this, right? This is how it works with drugs, this is how it works with medicine. It's the same thing psychologically. So what happens is when you become exposed to something a lot, your heart starts to become desensitized. In other words, you become numb, okay? So say you're always seeing some sort of shamelessness. What's shamelessness? Shamelessness in Arabic, it's called fahsha, okay? Fahsha is basically these things that are just, these sins, things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dislikes, and they're shameless. Okay, and I don't have to get into detail about what I mean. The way that people behave, the way that people dress, the interactions that you have to be exposed to, the language, the types of things people are doing, on the weekends, or maybe just right in front of you in the hallway. You understand what I'm saying, yeah? That when you get exposed to that again and again, this is now going in your eyes, your ears. What it does is not only is it putting a black spot on your heart, but it's starting to numb your heart. It makes you become less and less sensitive to the fact that this is wrong.